Part of doing this YouTube channel, I hear some horror stories. It's there's no story on the news that's reporting some of the torture that we've experienced. They just don't report shit like that. And yet that's going on in our own neighborhoods. You can tell that this level of torture is going on here in Canada because of the level of um, women's shelters. When you see a women's shelter, that's an acknowledgement that your community is saying, we know there are women and children that are being tortured in our communities. And instead of stopping it, instead of looking at the cause of why this is going on in our communities, we're going to build a shelter where they can get an hour off. I find that really insulting. I find that that is community's way of saying, hey, you need some rest and time to take a good beating. It's not community helping me out at all. It's community sustaining everything. It's an acknowledgement that you see the torture that children have to endure, and you accept it. And you will fund it. You will fund a place for them to rest. Because Lord knows we don't want to see it is really, really sick when we see how um, we think a solution is. Um, I think that those of us who have experienced this level of torture, which I have not experienced anything near some of the stories that I've heard, it's almost like I had to be sensitive to a point where what I experienced was torture enough. Like it's like my brain couldn't go anything past that. It's like God will never give you more than you can handle. Well, the level that I went through, no human on the planet could possibly survive anything worse than what I experienced. That's in my mind. There's no going any further than the torture that I went through. The human body can't take it. It's just not possible. And yet, I hear stories billion times worse than anything that I've gone through. So I can't imagine how we're going to shift this unless, you spend a lifetime asking, how do you shift this? Like if you know, and I'm 52, and you spend your life, I mean, because your experiences change you into who you are. When you see something this wrong, you are passionate for the rest of your life, want to see it end. That's the only place I'm coming from is, hey, sorry, universe, but if you're going to make me see how really big and bad the world is, you picked the wrong girl because I'm going to do something to fix it. But I've also noticed everybody that claims to have been able to solve a problem for me happens to have been dead wrong. So, and I see patterns repeating. So I don't want to be the one that thinks there's a solution when it's really not. I'm very, very sensitive to what a solution is and what it's not, because if you're wrong, it's actually causing the abuse. So it's like, how can the solutions we perceive the solutions actually be the abuse? It's because we don't know what it is we're doing. So I've come up with an understanding. And it's like, if you look at things from everything is equal, that means that, for example, the story that I heard lately was about this girl's mother. If you put yourself in your mother's shoes and you seen yourself acting like that towards your daughter, what has to be in your mind to think that you are doing the right thing? Because every single person that's doing anything has some logic going on in their mind. They had one experience, another experience. They've had one influence that influenced another, that influenced another, that caused them to treat other people the way that they're treated. So, what in your wildest dreams would make you think the way were treated? If you did that to another person, what would make you do that? If you can find the logic that somebody else is using to justify their actions, then the conversation can begin. But as long as we're like, well, how could you do that? Then you're not understanding them. You're not understanding where they're coming from. And if you can't understand where they're coming from, they can't understand where you're coming from. You both are two sides of the fence of insanity, which is where I'm at. Is like, how do you talk with insanity? I would look insane to those I think are insane. And the only way that we can communicate is if we get on the same page. And I truly, truly believe that every one of us are driven to create this peace and loving experience in our lives. So for a mother to treat a daughter that way, first of all, she's only treating you the way she thinks she should be treated. So somebody was beating the crap out of her. She's replaying that pattern over and over again, where she's constantly doing something to be criticized and put down and demeaned. She is not behaving in a way where people would say, hey, you're a great person, you're one to be followed, and the leader of everything. Pretty sure she is living life by thinking that the right thing to do is put everybody down and trash them and beat them, and because that's how she perceives life. Somebody has influenced her to see that that's what life is all about. And I mean, you just have to look at our corporate structure. They're doing the same thing. You look at our royal family, they're doing the same thing. You can see Oprah, she's doing the same thing. So she's a reflection of society, but highly sensitive to the extreme. But I mean, you just need to see a soldier picking up a gun, and what is the difference? The result of the same belief, the same behaviors going on. We just don't know how to be loving. And from my experience, when you go through that level of torture and you know it's wrong, it's because you know it's right, what's right. So you've had to have the experience of what love is to know that that ain't what love is. And so we need these beams of light to come onto the planet, to be able to bring to our conscious awareness what love really is and how love spreads. Evil goes, like, I say one word to you, you get negative, don't feel too good if I say something negative. If I throw negative energy to you, then that will piss you off. And then the next person you talk to, you'll say something because you're in a bad mood now, and you'll turn him into evil. Like, if you can see how negative energy flows between each and every one of us, it influences us. And right now, as we're getting in pain, we're getting angry, and evil is like gonna rule the friggin' planet. So the only way true loving beings can be truly loving beings is knowing that how I perceive other people is going to be an expression of the love. That if your mother was beating her, you can tell who you are by how you are judging other people. So how she was treating you was actually how she would treat herself. So if you look at somebody that's just mentally ill, behaviors that aren't loving, then you can't hate it, because then you've already turned into it. So you have to love, because that's the only way of looking at anything different. That's when you know you are different. when you can love something unconditionally. Accept the fact that they are lost. Accept the fact that what they did wasn't right. But they hurt themselves more than they hurt anybody else, because at the end of the day, you've been given the gift of knowing what love is, while they didn't know what the gift of what love is. So it's like when we were talking about, our parents, and like I can't talk to my parents. They can't change an old dog, can't teach an old dog new tricks, which he was what, about 30 when he started saying that. So um, he's got his rules to make sure that he's constantly never going to know the answers to anything. It's the same with Oprah. It's like, we're not ready. We're not ready. As soon as that girl starts saying, hey, we're ready, she'll probably receive more information, but she's not ready yet. People tell you who they are by the words that they use and their actions, and that's who they are. If they are not expressing love, then they are not loving beings, which means they lack love. Somebody's influenced them to never experience love in their life. They don't know how to receive it. So no matter what you do, no matter what you do to show loving, unloving people love, that is, they would reject it. You are the biggest enemy, because they don't know how to deal with it. They're not comfortable with it. It is their chaos. As soon as you send somebody love that is not a loving being, the first thing you got to do is understand how they can receive love, because they don't know how to do that. That's how come they're not loving beings, is because they cannot receive it. You will drive yourself crazy trying to get them to love, because their love meter is not on. The best thing you can do is create community love. There are more of us than there are of them. Anybody who's in pain is in pain because they are lacking love. So anybody that wants out of pain needs to really, really feel what that feeling of love is, and love for self. Create the life that you love. Instead of waiting for somebody else to create your life, you create your life out of love. Do what you love doing. Do it for free, and trust the universe will support you as long as you are loving. People want to be attracted to other loving beings. So it's 100th monkey concept. When you create an environment where evil can't be sustained, whatever evil does cannot, it just, that's how you kill evil, is let evil be what evil needs to be, but don't try to prove it. Your proving turns you into evil, because you'll get frustrated trying to prove something you'll never ever be able to prove. And as soon as you get frustrated, you're in a negative state of mind. So it's like you gotta constantly keep yourself in a positive, confident, do what you're confident you can do, which is just yourself. The only thing you can do is yourself, and just not play with evil, and find different directions. So I'm really, really, that's the only reason that I'm doing what I'm doing, is because of all of these stories that I can't imagine are worse than anything that I've experienced. Um, how anybody has survived worse than I am, as far as I'm concerned, you're geniuses to know how to survive something like that. I can only think that maybe my level was just enough for me to be able to not fall so deep into the pain, because maybe when you get that deep in the pain, you start losing how to get yourself out of it. So maybe that's just why my experiences were felt the way and the level that they were, so that I could easily pull myself out and be able to figure out, why is all this going on? What's the answer to all of this? And be receiving of it. If I was in too much more pain than this, I'm sure I would have blocked out and started splitting off into a million different personalities. Peace out.